Hi students, and welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am streaming to you from beautiful Budapest in the Carpathian Basin. I hope everybody has had a healthy and productive week and is looking forward to a good weekend. Students, in this class we are looking at Task 2 Writing Advantages and Disadvantages essay. Specifically, we are focusing on the body paragraphs and the conclusion. This is continuing from yesterday's class. This is a members chat class. Of course, everybody is welcome to watch, but only members can use the chat. There will be an all chat class coming up in 90 minutes where we will focus on the listening section, specifically parts 3 and 4, continuing from yesterday. Hi, Abhishek. Hi, Maksud Pavan and Bahrad. Good to see members in the class. While we wait for some more of your peers, this lesson is presented to you by aehelp.com for academic IELTS help. Visit us there. We have mock speaking interview practice, writing practice, original exams, videos, lots more. For general IELTS, check us out at GIELTShelp.com. That's generalieltshelp.com. I'll quickly show you these websites and then we'll get on with the lesson. This is the academic here with the blue background. Click that big red button to join there. And this is the general version here with the green background. Click that big red button to join there. Hi, Alexander. Hi, Pooja. Hi, Dip. Nice to see a couple of our newer members in here as well. Hi, Tito. Good to see our regular members also joining in. Students, if you have questions about the exam or our products, just send me an email, adrian@aehelp.com. Now, let's look at the question that we're dealing with. I think many of you or most of you were in this class yesterday, but we'll just quickly reread the question so we get focused, and then we'll start in on the remainder of the essay. So read with me, students. IELTS Task 2 Writing. You should spend about 40 minutes on this task. In many countries, people would rather rent a house instead of buying one. Describe the advantages and disadvantages of both. And so we did some good critical thinking, and we realized that really the main difference between these two is that renting a home is low risk, but also lower gain, less control. And buying a house gives you more control over the property. It's higher gain, but at the same time, it's higher risk. That's it in a nutshell. So that's the advantages and disadvantages. Do you agree, members, that if we had to really concisely summarize advantages, disadvantages of these two? Again, renting a home, low risk, but also low gain, losing more money, less control. Owning a home, more control, more risk, but also more gain, right? Okay, looks like everybody is on the same page as I am. That's fantastic. So, we got into the introduction. We made it all the way there. Now, here's the original thesis, students, that we came up with. Okay, so this was the original thesis. Renting a home is lower risk and provides flexibility while giving less personal control and monetary gain. However, owning a home gives greater control, but also greater risk. Okay. Now, one of the most important parts of the essay, members, that you should always rework, rethink, go back, rewrite, and master, and make better is the thesis, okay? So for those of you who are master's or PhD students, anybody a master's or PhD student among our members? Anybody working towards studying their master's or PhD? I think a lot of you who are university students, you know that in your master's and PhD, your start when you meet with your professor, your supervisor, is to come up with your thesis. Okay, the thesis is your argument or idea that you come up with that you're going to prove or disprove in your graduate studies. So Bhumi says, I've completed my master's in science. So Bhumi knows what I'm talking about, the thesis statement. And I'm sure a lot of you that are doing these graduate studies, you know, oh yeah, the thesis statement of my master's. So what I am arguing, okay? Ayaku, welcome to our group of members. So the thesis is the pivot point of your essay. So we came up with that thesis statement, but I actually reworked the thesis a little bit for this introduction today. So take a look at what the introduction looks like now. So this is our introduction here. The home is a basic need of all human beings. That's the hook from yesterday. And then the background, a residence provides people with shelter from the elements and a place to rest. Arguably, the money spent by an individual on their home, whether renting or buying, is one of the highest expenses incurred during a lifetime. Renting a home. Now, here's my new thesis, okay? So pay attention here, members, students, because I reworked this a bit. So renting a home is lower risk and provides flexibility while giving less personal control and monetary gain. Until here, it's the same. Here's where the difference is. While owning a home can be riskier, it can also provide more control and profit. So here, I changed it a little bit. Can you tell me, members, what the main change is that I did from my first thesis yesterday to this one? So have a look here again. This is, however, owning a home gives greater control, but also greater risk. And then here, I changed it to, while owning a home can be riskier, it can also provide more control and profit. Okay? So how is this different? Okay? Yeah, Hemant, very good. So Hemant said, I highlighted risks first. Absolutely. So in the original thesis, okay, if we look at it carefully, very good, Hemant, you got it. Okay, so I did the risks first. So notice that the original thesis here is advantage, disadvantage, okay, and then that's body one, which we will start writing in a moment. And then for body two, I did advantage, okay, gives greater control, and then disadvantage. Okay, so advantage, disadvantage, advantage, disadvantage. That's for body two. But what I decided after looking at it before class is I don't want to write the essay that way. Okay, I want a different flow for my essay. Now, it's your logic to decide what you want to do, but your thesis does give the structure to your writing as well. So what I did differently for my second version of this thesis is instead of doing advantage, disadvantage, advantage, disadvantage, I did advantage, disadvantage, and then disadvantage, advantage, right? As Hemant very nicely pointed that out. Why? Because this, I feel, will give more coherence and more cohesion to my essay. Does that make sense, students? So going advantage, disadvantage, disadvantage, advantage will be more cohesive, will have a better flow, in my opinion, okay, for the essay. All right? Does that make sense? So remember, for students who are looking for that band 7, 8, 9 on the IELTS exam, which are great scores, you have to think about this level of literature, of authorship, Okay, you have to go beyond just thinking, I need to use good English. You actually have to think about, I need to have good writing, especially for the academic students. Okay, so you have to think at this level, all right? I think one of the biggest problems with a lot of IELTS materials and lessons out there is they don't emphasize enough, especially for academic students, the need to go to this level of thinking for the IELTS exam, okay? Especially for those high band scores. And in my experience, the IELTS has become more challenging in recent years than 10, 20 years ago when I first started teaching. So it's harder to get a band 8 today than it was 15 years ago. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so let's do this. So let's get into body paragraph writing. What's the first sentence of a body paragraph? Okay, so we'll start going with body paragraph 1. And the first sentence of the body paragraph is always, hopefully some of you will tell me this, is always the topic sentence. Okay, it explains what the paragraph is about. Or in another way, it is a deeper definition of your first thesis point. Okay? Yeah, exactly. Very good. Yeah, Abhishek, great. Haman, nice. Maksud, Bhumi, fantastic. Yeah, it's your topic sentence, okay? So your topic sentence explains what your paragraph is going to be about. We already have an idea as the reader when you have a good thesis, but here you're going to give it a bit more depth, okay? All right, so Elena says renting a home is a common phenomenon these days. These days is 2 words, Elena. It's not like nowadays, okay? It's 2 words. Elena, that's a little bit maybe too general, okay, for a body paragraph. You want to be a bit more detailed than that, okay? And Ferdov says the topic sentence here should be in connection to the advantages of renting a home, right? So our body paragraph 1 is about renting a home, right? Because this is our first body paragraph here. So renting a home is lower risk and provides flexibility, okay? So create a body paragraph topic sentence that gives a deeper idea of this statement to your reader. And again, students, you don't need to have a ton of English to do this. I mean, you definitely need a strong intermediate level, but you don't need to think, well, I need to be like a native speaker to do this in college. No, not necessarily. You can go into deeper definitions using simpler language, okay? So, Barad says, there are several pros of renting a house, including lower risk as well as flexibility, along with cons like minor personal control and monetary profit. Barad, that topic sentence is more of just a repeat of the thesis. So try to think about this idea from a different perspective, okay? So remember what I said, students. What you want to do here is you don't want to repeat the same idea, so looking at the apple from the same direction, but you want to really turn it and look at it from a different angle, okay? The apple being the idea here, of course. Pooja says, renting these days, although cheaper, would seem expensive in the long run. Pooja, that topic sentence does not seem to be directly related to the thesis key point. Okay. Tito says, renting a home is the primary need for workers and people, while it has a lot of pros and cons. It's not a good topic sentence, Tito, because again, you're just repeating the thesis. Okay, so practice this, students. Get into a little bit more detail. So Maksud says there are considerable advantages of renting a home these days. Like what, Maksud? You're on to a good start. You just need to give a little bit more to that sentence. Okay, Bhumi, much better. So Bhumi says being a tenant is beneficial because it's both easy to change locations and there's a lower risk of losing money. Now we're getting into the right topic sentences. Okay. So Roshni Kunte says, in most countries, individuals renting a property makes sense while traveling and also becomes lower risk for losing money. Okay, so Roshni, yeah, that's better. All right, I can see some of you are now turning those thoughts and wheels. Excuse me. I hope that wasn't too loud. Abhishek says, nowadays, mostly working people prefer to rent a home due to lots of traveling or relocating for work. Yeah, okay, Abhishek, that's possible. Yeah, you're in the right direction as well. Hemant says, although renting a residence could compromise one's personal liberty, it has lower risk index and more flexibility to move to new locations. That's much better, Hemant. Okay, so good. Now you're thinking in the right direction. Okay. So, renting a home is lower liability for tenants and also provides the ability to relocate for work and school. How about that for a topic sentence? Okay, so it's nice because here we can see this kind of in one eye shot. Okay, so again, more detail. Think about it this way, students. So when your thesis statement says renting a home is lower risk and provides flexibility, think about this question. Okay, so what do you mean it's lower risk? Okay. So what do you mean it is lower risk? And what do you mean flexibility? So a good strategy, okay, for quality writing is continuously having a self-dialogue of asking and answering good questions, as if you are both the writer and the reader. Okay? And again, think about the audience as an alien. So here, basically what you're doing is you're going, okay, my thesis statement is renting a home is lower risk and it's more flexible. And then the reader goes, oh, okay, I hear that. So what do you mean it's less risky? And what do you mean it's flexible? Well, what I mean by that is you're not spending as much money and losing as much money as if you buy a house. And if you need to, you can move to another residence for work or for school. Okay, so let's put that into a topic sentence and an explanation. Does that make sense, students? What I'm saying by that? Okay. Trying to get the light writing here. My apologies for doing that to you. I just want to make sure that you can see the board clearly. Okay. Thank you, Maksud. All right. So here we go. So the topic sentence is renting a home is lower liability for tenants. Okay, that already starts to indicate the concept of greater liability for homeowners and also provides the ability to relocate for work and school. Okay, all right, so now comes the explanation. Okay, so explain that to me. Okay, so again, when you're thinking about the explanation, do this kind of question and answer concept in your mind once more. Okay, so go, okay, so renting a home is lower liability for the tenant and also gives more of an ability to relocate for work and school. Well, what do you mean by that? So, like, how does a tenant have less liability? And what do you mean that they can um, move around more? Like, why are they able to do that? So, now think about that question and give me a good explanation. Okay? I'm going to give you a second head start here before I start writing. So why so if you can also put yourself in this situation. So imagine you're a tenant, you're a renter. Why can you move more easily? Why do you have less liability? Okay? Give me a nice explanation for that. Hopefully you come up with the same idea that I came up with. I think most of us have knowledge of both renting and owning a home in our lifetimes by the time we become adults. So, what's the explanation for that? Why can a tenant move around easier and have lower liability? Okay, I'm going to start typing. Try not to take a peek until you have your own idea, all right? So, all right, let's see what you came up with. I see lots of explanations coming up. So Hemant says normally rent cost is manageable and moving is much easier as we do not have many things to pack. Okay. Hemant, two really important points, of course. One, don't use contractions, especially in the academic writing. So do not, okay? And don't use the word things, Hemant. Okay, don't use the word things. Roshni says, moreover, it makes no sense to buy a property in a city where a person is not going to spend a certain period of time. Roshni, you're approaching it from the negative side, which means that you're thinking about the house or owning a house instead of renting. Here's another really, really important tip, students. Give me one moment. I'm going to give us a little bit more light control. I was hoping I could keep the windows open in my studio, but I guess that's not going to work. So I'm just going to do a bit more lighting control here for us. Just give me 1 second, and then I won't have to play around with this. All right. There we go. Now that'll be stable. All right. So here's a really important tip, students. Okay. This is coming from the art of rhetoric, which means the art of argument. And if you ever study philosophy, this is one of the beautiful gems or high value knowledge that you learn from philosophy. Okay, I'm going to put this up here. Above the thesis. There's logic to that. So when you give an explanation, so again, this is writing, and this is logic strategy as well, or strategy of argument, strategy for good arguments. Okay, and you should use this in other parts of your life as well, not just on the IELTS. Believe me, it will bring you more success. Okay, so in most cases, you should always argue and explain from the positive or pro side. Let's call it positive side for now. Explain from the positive side of the idea and not the contra. Okay. So what I mean by this is when you're telling me why I should buy car A, so imagine that I have, for example, car A. I'm going a little bit into a different direction here, and you have car B. Okay? And you want to sell me car A. Okay? The logic here is that if you want to sell me car A, don't sell me car A by telling me that car B is bad. Okay? Because a clever person will say, well, you're telling me that car B is bad, so I should buy car A. But that is logically flawed because you haven't told me why I should buy car A. Car A can still be bad also. So what I want to know is, why is car A good? Okay? It's very common for people to make this logical mistake in their arguments. So they'll say something like, well, you should rent a home because then you don't have to move a lot of stuff, like if you own a home. Okay, but that's like saying that car B is bad, which is owning in another way, and car A is good because it's renting. But that's a flaw in the argument. Does that make sense, students, what I'm saying there? So when you have a paragraph and your paragraph is discussing the advantages of renting a home, then make sure that you're discussing the advantage of renting a home. Okay? Only after can you make the comparison from the negative side, which will come anyway. So keep that in mind. Okay? It's a very, again, a very important point for good coherence, good cohesion in writing. Okay, especially for university students who are going to study for their bachelor's, master's, and PhD. I think most master's and PhD students know this because it's one of the key points they'll teach you in university. Okay, so body one, here we go. I'm going to read a few more of your explanations. Let's see what else is there. So Bhumi says, a person who is renting a house does not need to invest thousands of dollars in purchasing, so they can easily change their location to their school or work area more conveniently. Okay, Bhumi, that's in the right direction. Yeah. Maksud says, millions of individuals work abroad and renting is the best way for them to live. This makes returning to their hometown easier. Okay, this makes, Maksud, this makes returning to their hometown easier. Charlie says, when a person rents a home, they spend less money for their shelter. So if for some reason the tenant has to move to another place, he or she can easily do that because they did not pay a large down payment. Yeah, and of course, when you're moving because you own a house, you have to actually sell that house, right? It takes time to sell the house. All right. Niha says, tenants can move around to new locations at their ease by giving 1 month notice to the owners and can move to the location of their choice, which is near their workplace. Niha, that's the best explanation I've read so far. Good job. See, it's not so terribly bad when you start to wrap your head around it. Good one. Niha, you get my first thumbs up of the day. Pooja says renting is beneficial, especially when a company gives rent allowance. Pooja, careful, that's a good idea, but it's not the idea that we're discussing. A company giving rent allowance, that's a whole nother argument. Okay, you can't just jump idea to idea, because then the essay falls apart and becomes very confusing for your reader. All right, so this is my explanation here. Tenancy contracts usually bind people to a monthly payment of a few hundred or a few $1,000s and a 1 month notice for moving out. Notice how 1 month, because it becomes an adjective, I use the hyphen. It's hyphenated. So when you create an adjective like this, you need to use the hyphen. So 1 month notice for moving out. This enables tenants to not worry about large mortgage loans, as well as moving to another house or apartment after 4 to 5 weeks. Okay, so enables means makes it possible for them not to worry about their mortgage loans, which of course we'll go into later with the house, and then being able to move in 4 or 5 weeks. It's very difficult to move in such a short time if you own a home, usually. Okay, so all right, now notice how this essay is third person. We're not using I, me, my. So here we want to give a nice quick example. Okay, so the example should be something from the real world that we can clearly and easily see, and it's easy for the reader to go, aha, that's it. So again, question and answer, right, students? So here's the author, that's me, going, okay, this enables tenants to not worry about large loans and lets them move after 4 or 5 weeks. Okay, so now the reader, the other me, says, great. Can you give me an example of this happening in many nations around the world? And then I go, yeah, sure. So here's my example. Write yours as well. So okay, so there's my example. Millions of students around the world pay between $300 to $500 for monthly rent, and once their semester is over, they move back to their hometown. This is clearly a benefit of renting. Okay, that's my real world example. It's visible now, and I can go on to the disadvantages. Okay. Couple of commas here. And that's it. All right. Let's see what you've come up with. So Abhishek says renting properties are lower risk and more flexible because the person has to pay less rental money compared to owning a property and notify the owners 1 month before so that they can relocate due to work and school. Okay, that's your explanation, Abhishek. That's not bad. All right. Ferdovs, now there's an example. So Ferdovs says, like most Americans, prefer to pay a rent of about $1,000 to $2,000 a month in order to get mortgage, as they do not desire to be under pressure for mortgage payments and lose their ability to move around. Yeah, for Dobbs, I think you're on the right track. The repetition of the word mortgage is a bit awkward, unclear. So you want to clean it up, but your thinking is correct. Rajveer says, according to New York Times, 70% of the workforce in the U.S. prefers to rent a home as they can easily switch their residence as per their work locations, which are often in several different cities around the country, like San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Sure, Rajveer, that's good. Okay, now students, another quick tip here, all right? I'm going to put this above introduction B here. Students, please stop using this leading expression according to the New York Times. Okay, stop using according to the New York Times. Okay, why am I telling you to stop doing that? So why should you stop using according to the New York Times? Please tell me that. It's very important. Although it makes sense, I never want to see that again for an example. Why am I telling you that? While you give me the answer, I'll read a couple more of the examples. Elena says it is not possible for students to spend millions of dollars to stay while studying in a foreign country. Therefore, renting a home with a $500 to $700 monthly budget is a much more flexible and better option. Elena, good. I made a couple of adjustments there to make it sound better, but it's good. Okay, Hemant says, as per study by Asian Housing Index, 90% of students rent apartments from a range of $500 to $750 a month. And once they are through with their studies, they vacate with 1 month notice. Very nice example, Hemant. Good. Roshni says it's because it's not believable. Nope, that's not it, Roshni. Boomi says because it's a legal news site. Nope, that's not it either, Boomi. It's because it's way too cookie cutter. And the IELTS examiners, they won't tell you this, but they're tired of that redundant phrase, okay? So please stop using this according to the New York Times. It's like every third essay has an example starting with according to the New York Times. Imagine if you're an IELTS examiner and you're reading according to the New York Times 300 times a day, and you know it's just being made up, but at least be a little bit original. So students, if you really want to refer to a newspaper, be a little bit more clever. So according to the New Delhi Sun, according to the Berlin Journal, according to the Chicago News, okay, so not the New York Times. You can make up the name of the newspaper, just make up something really different from the New York Times. Okay, is that clear? Everybody's got me on that? Okay, so be creative. If you have to make up a source, be creative, okay? According to Science Journal Taipei, okay? So just make up something different, all right? Be original. IELTS examiners like to see original sentencing. So thank you for sharing that. I think it was Rajveer, because it was a good point. I've just seen it too much, and I wanted to say that anyway, okay? All right, so definitely we're not done yet, okay? We want to get into the negatives now, right? So I'm going to reread this, and then we're going to write the negative side. Now, the IELTS exam, you have 40 minutes, so you have to know how much you can do. If you can get to 300, 350 words, great. If not, then be concise, okay? So here we go. Renting a home is lower liability for tenants and also provides the ability to relocate for work and school. Tenancy contracts usually bind people to a monthly payment of a few hundred to a few $1,000s and a 1 month notice for moving out. This enables tenants to not worry about large mortgage loans as well as moving to another house or apartment after 4 to 5 weeks. Millions of students around the world pay between $300 to $500 for monthly rent, and once their semester is over, they move back to their hometown. This is a clear benefit of renting, okay? On the other hand, okay, so here, just write the negative, students. Write the negative. I'm going to read your negative, and then we'll do a little comparison. I'll give you some feedback, okay? So on the other hand, All right. So there is my negative. On the other hand, tenants cannot make significant changes in their home without the permission of landlords, and the money they pay each month is not invested. Students renting their apartments cannot suddenly decide to renovate their bathroom, nor can they ever get back the 500 USD paid to the landlord. These are the negatives of leasing, okay, using that synonym, all right? Barad says, for instance, when my brother got a new job in Dallas, he relocated from his rented house in New York to Dallas without much hassle by giving just 15 days notice. Barad, that's okay, but you're using a first person example, and this essay is third person. Why do we know that, Barad? Because the thesis does not use I, me, or my, okay? All right, Charlie Sen says, the disadvantage of renting a home is that the tenant can't change the room decoration according to their desire. They need permission of the landlord, and also the landlord can evict. It's not evacuate, Charlie, it's evict. All right, E-V-I-C-T, evict. The tenant with a 2-month notice. Yeah, okay, good, Charlie. That's a good one, all right? Rajveer says, on the other hand, renting a home gives little freedom to people to do any modifications in their residence, and they do not get any return on their monthly rent paid to the landlord. Exactly, Rajveer. Very nice. Okay, now everybody is on a roll. Hemant, tenancy comes with more rigid rules, oriented lifestyle, which compromises the freedoms to alter living space. Hemant, big no-no, okay? Know your and you. All right, I own my home, so you can't talk directly to me. You can't talk directly to your reader, Hemant. Do not use you or your. That second person author voice, we usually only use that in narrative story writing or instructional writing, okay? When we're giving instructions on how to build a house or how to cook a meal. You should put in the eggs first, okay? But not in this kind of essay. All right, Hemant? So know you, know your, all right? Firdavs, however, tenants may not be able to rebuild or renovate structures, and of course, they are not able to acquire assets in the long term. Very nice, Firdavs. Just one quick tip, Firdavs. Don't double up your words. So rebuild or renovate, it's very similar, just one, okay? Tenants are not able to renovate structures, and of course, they are not able to acquire assets in the long term. Concise, Firdavs. Work towards that concise. Don't double up your words, okay? All right. Nicely done. Okay, Pavan, on the other hand, tenants are restricted to making any changes without consent of landlords. Students cannot modify any structures according to their wishes. Pavan, just name it, right? Students cannot modify their bedrooms and bathrooms as they wish without being evicted for damaging the property, right, Pavan? Okay, good. All right. So I realize that this is a fairly long paragraph. And of course, I'm giving you a band 9 example here. So this is going to be a pretty long essay in that 40 minutes. Again, you have to write the essay according to your ability, so how fast you're able to write. The IELTS does give you enough paper to write a 350-word essay, okay? For those of you who are thinking about the TOEFL, the Task 2 essay is a minimum 300 words, also in 40 minutes, okay? So the minimum word count for TOEFL is 50 more than for IELTS. A lot of students, when they see these longer essays, they go, but sir, you went over 250 words. Yeah, absolutely. The minimum is 250, okay? Keep that in mind. So, all right. Good job. Elena, where's the negative? Abhishek, Dip, Butt, are you still with us? I want to see some writing. Don't worry if you're not sure about it yet. Neha, I liked your previous sentences, so keep going. Okay, want to see more. All right, so now, students, of course, we have body paragraph 2, and then the conclusion. Okay, now I unfortunately, I don't have time for that. I'd rather give you feedback on your writing than rush through these parts. Elena says, but sir, I wrote this down previously. Okay, Elena, let me have a look. I'm going to catch it. Let me know. Ah, there we go, Elena. Right you are. My bad. So Elena says, however, renting a home comes with less flexibility in terms of changing decoration and privacy. Elena, careful with your verb modification. Changing decoration, changing privacy. Changing decoration makes sense, Elena, but changing privacy doesn't. Okay, so you have to clarify that more. All right, so careful if you have a verb that it makes sense for both of your nouns if you don't have another verb. It's like saying eating a sandwich and orange juice. You can't do that. You have to say eating a sandwich and drinking an orange juice, because eating does not modify orange juice accurately. So careful with that kind of mistake, Elena. That's a coherence mistake, and those ones cost you band scores, okay? All right. So body 2 and the conclusion, members, I will leave that for you. And of course, don't panic, don't worry. I will complete this essay and put it up on the YouTube community board as I have done with the previous essays, okay? So I think you have a really good idea of what you need to do now. So for body paragraph 2, one really important point. Actually, let me ask you this. What will you start body paragraph 2 with? Okay. So this is my final question for this class. What do you start body paragraph 2? Yes, you can send it, Elena, absolutely, for a band score estimate. Okay. Yeah, Dr. Krishna, that would be a better verb, but you have to make sure it's the right grammar too. Okay, so what do I start body paragraph 2 with? Yeah, Bhumi, very good. So Bhumi's paying attention. Bhumi says the negative side of owning a house, right, Bhumi? Negative side of owning a house. Charlie Sen says the disadvantage of owning a house, then the advantage. Okay, very good. Abhishek, not the advantage. We start with the disadvantage. Remember the thesis. Remember the thesis. Exactly, Roshni. Very good, Roshni. Disadvantage of how owning a house is riskier. Okay, nice, Neha. Good. All right, members, rock and roll. You're doing fantastic. Keep that up, and you're going to do well. By the way, students, members, learning these techniques, you're not just going to get a great IELTS mark, but when you get into your university classes, wherever you're going, you follow these strategies, and I promise you, you're going to be really doing well there also, okay? So good job, everyone. Good job. I'm really proud of all of you. All right, fantastic. Okay, so to all of our viewers, stay tuned. Coming up in about 30 minutes, we'll do listening parts 3 and 4, some practice, some strategy. And if you like these lessons and you want some high-definition videos pre-recorded with no ads, where you get your complete essays and all the gems of strategies for academic IELTS, check us out at aehelp.com. Join our premium package there, and gieltshelp.com for the general. You're very welcome, Roshni. Welcome, Maksud, and everybody else. Hopefully I'll see you shortly. Bye for now. Much love from the heart of Europe, Budapest.